Okay, I've officially started the recording, and just for recording purposes, let me go ahead and introduce myself again. My name is Carol Bailey White. I am the president of Duval Audubon Society. And with me tonight are Jessica Dyszel and Jake Blalock. They're going to be our co-presenters this evening. And I'll introduce them a little bit more here in just a minute, but let me go ahead and talk about Hog Island itself. So Hog Island is, well, it is indeed an unforgettable nature experience. Anybody who's ever been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. The camp is located on a small island. It's about 330 acres. That is located off the coast of Maine, it's about 60 miles northeast of Portland. Audubon has run summer camp sessions for adults, teens, families, and even special sessions for educators since the 1930s. And this photo actually is a view of Hog Island from the mainland. So that's what it looks like when you are standing on the island, standing on the mainland, looking across the bay. That bay is called Muscongas Bay. I'll talk about that more in a minute. Okay. So here are our co-presenters this evening. They have both attended Hog Island Camp sessions this year, and I have actually attended several Hog Island Camp sessions over the years. I think my first one might have been in 2014 or 2015. I can't remember the exact year. So Jessica is pictured on the left, and she is a board member of Duval Audubon Society, and also, I believe, a registered nurse by profession. And an incredibly enthusiastic birder and very, very dedicated birder. She has really applied herself to learning bird sounds and learning about bird behavior and field marks. And it's always a thrill to go birding with Jessica because she knows what she's talking about. So, and she was able to attend a Hog Island session this summer that I think started in May and went through early June. Yeah. So she'll talk about hers in a little bit. And now on the right is Jake Blalock. He is the son of Kevin Blaylock, who is one of our members. And Jake and his dad have been joining us for field trips for, I don't know how many years, Jake, at least 5, probably, right?
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. And it's an absolute pleasure always to see Jake and his dad on a field trip. Jake has wonderful eyesight and wonderful hearing, as younger people typically have. And he's also really, really good at spotting the birds and getting them, getting a photo of them, which I find really challenging. So it's always a great pleasure and a surprise when Jake and his dad are birding with us. But unbeknownst to us beforehand, Jake was going to attend this session. Jake received a scholarship to attend a session at Hog Island. And like I said, unbeknownst to either of us beforehand, his session ran concurrently with mine. So we were on the island at the same time. And this photo was, I really like this photo because it was such a wonderful surprise to see Jake. And we only had one class together, I think, during the camp session, but it was just such a wonderful surprise to see Jake at the camp. And I'm so glad he got the opportunity to experience that wonderful place. So both of them are here tonight to tell you about their experiences. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of the camp and kind of what it's like to participate in a camp session. So let me move on. All right. So the pictures on the left are old pictures, and the one on the right, of course, is a recent one. The history of the island is basically before Europeans started arriving in the late 1600s, the island was inhabited for many, many, many years by Native Americans, mostly members of the Abenaki Nation. And there's a lot of information on the history of Native Americans in the Maine area available online. So I won't talk a whole lot about that. Once the European settlers arrived, they started using the island as pasture for livestock, and that's the thought of where the name Hog Island actually came from. And it was also used for hunting and timber harvesting and that kind of thing. In the early 1900s, part of the island was purchased by David Todd and his wife Mabel to use as a summer home. and the other part of the island was operated in the early 1900s as a commercial summer getaway for vacationers. And actually, several of the buildings, including the one pictured on the upper left and the one on the right, which is actually the same building, from that operation are actually still used by the camp today. So the buildings are quite old, although they're kept in good repair, but they're quite old. Let's see. In 1935, the Todd's daughter Millicent inherited her. She had inherited her parents' part of the island, and she donated it to the Audubon organization in 1935 as, quote, a site of ornithological significance where Audubon could protect birds. I'm sorry, didn't mean to do that. Audubon could protect birds and launch the organization's first educational camp. So they all along had this goal of educating people about environmental things and protect birds and educate people about nature. And a friend of Millicent's actually purchased the rest of the island and donated to Audubon for conservation purposes as well. So at that point, mid-30s is when Audubon owned the entire island. So they started educational camp sessions in 1936 with the belief that environmental education would foster an appreciation of wildlife, especially birds, and spark a commitment to wildlife conservation. Of course, they still follow that same ethos today, very beautifully. And actually, Roger Tory Peterson, whose name you all may recognize, he was among the first camp instructors in 1936. All right. And I forgot to mention on the previous slide, the old photos are courtesy of the Friends of Hog Island. They have a fabulous Hog Island history site that is at hogislandmaine.historyit.com. And that's where I found all those old photos. And there's just lots and lots more information about the fascinating history of the island on that site. So you may want to check that out. And of course, the tradition of fabulous instructors continues to this day, and they have just such illustrious names as Scott Weidensaul, who's on the top left. He is the author of a book called A World on the Wing, which some of you probably have read. Fabulous book. He's a great writer, a wonderful instructor. He's written quite a few other books, and he writes regularly for Audubon and Cornell's Living Bird magazine. He's also a wonderful human being, a great instructor. I've had several classes with him, and it's just such a pleasure to be in the presence of such caliber of educators. The lady in the middle on the top row is Sarah Morris, who's the newly elected president of the American Ornithological Society. And she is a teacher at, I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name of her university, but she is a ornithology professor. And that's what she was actually teaching us, a course called Introduction to Ornithology, which was just fabulous. On the upper right, next to me in the boat, is Holly Merker, who is the author of Ornithotherapy, and she's going to be our speaker next month, as I mentioned. She has been an environmental educator for many years, and has been a frequent instructor at Hog Island. On the lower left is Don Lyons, and he is currently the director of Audubon's Project Puffin initiative and their Seabird Institute. In the middle on the bottom, on the left, is Tim Gallagher, who used to be, he was the former editor of Living Bird magazine that I already mentioned. That is the publication of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and the best magazine ever produced, in my opinion. He's a delightful person, very funny. And then standing next to him in the boat is Tyke James, who is Audubon's government affairs coordinator. So he's sort of the main liaison between Audubon and elected officials in Washington. So a lot of illustrious people to meet and have classes with at the camp. On the lower right is Stephen Kress, who originated Project Puffin. And he, back in the 80s, was the first person to pioneer this wonderful conservation technique of using decoys, and you can see these decoys in the photo behind him, to attract nesting birds back to the island. So in the 80s, all of the puffin colonies had been completely extirpated from the Maine islands, and his efforts and those of his team literally brought those puffin colonies back to the islands off the coast of Maine, and they're thriving today. So thank you, Dr. Kress. he's a dear person. And this is just to name just a few. I know Jessica probably had some additional instructors that I haven't even mentioned here, as did Jake. So, you know, you're always guaranteed to get some wonderful instructors who really care about the students and are just so eager to share the wealth of their knowledge with everybody. They're just all a delight without exception. Okay, so some of the classes that they offer, I think Jessica's got a list of the specific classes that they're going to offer next year, but some of the general ones that I've been to and some of the ones that they offer include Joy of Birding, which was the very first course I ever went to on Hog Island. Wonderful class. Obviously, it would inspire me to go back again and again to additional courses at Hog Island. It was just an absolute delight. They also have a class called Raptor Migration, and the people on the right in the big photo are actually doing what they call a hawk watch, where they are counting, identifying and counting raptors, and this would be in the potentially hundreds of raptors that are flying over them at any given moment, trying to figure out what they are and tallying them so they can have a count of the raptors that are migrating. So the Raptor Migration class is all about that. Jake's class this summer was Coastal Maine Bird Studies for Teens, and there he is pictured in the upper left. We had one class together, and it was Introduction to Ornithology, and that was the class that he is pictured in. And let's see what else. Spring and Fall Migration on Mohican Island. I think that's the one that Jessica went to, the spring edition of that. And a couple of years ago, I went to the fall edition of that, and it is incredible. Arts and birding and lots more. I mean, they have quite a few class sessions that are available. So lots of different options for different areas of interest. Let's see, let's talk a little bit about accommodations. So I will say the camp accommodations are comfortable, but they're certainly not anything like luxurious. There's no air conditioning, no heat. Heat's not really the issue in terms of it being hot, because in Maine during the summertime it usually stays fairly cool at night. But if you go to one of the early sessions, it can get very chilly, and so just dress accordingly, I will say. The first night at my session, I went in late June, and they had a cold front come in, and it was 41 degrees outside, and it was only like 50 in my room. The room on the lower right is the one I stayed in. There was no heat, but they have lots and lots of blankets, and they'll do everything to try to make you as comfortable as you possibly can be. So just be aware, you know, there may be some clothing options that you need to bring to stay warm at night. So as I've already kind of implied, campers stay in a variety of these different camp buildings, all very old buildings. Most of them dating back, like I said, to the early 1900s. The one on the upper right actually is the Fish House, which is the newest building on the island. That was built in 1941, so not especially new. It is sort of the heart, I will say, of the island, where most of the instruction and the programs take place. It's kind of a gathering place for everybody. They also have various sleeping options available, so you can get like a private room with a private bathroom if you would like to do that. Of course, that's the most expensive. And then all the way to a sleeping loft with 6 beds and a shared bathroom. Of course, that's the least expensive. So, and you know, various options in between are also available. So it kind of depends on your budget and your preferences. All right. And I could not, I see Jessica smiling. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. I couldn't go any further without talking about the food, because the food is one of the absolute pluses of an experience at Hog Island. All of the meals are provided for you, and they are all just absolutely amazing. I will say the chef and her assistants, they always prepare creative and delicious dishes using locally sourced ingredients, and very little is wasted. So something that you'll have for dinner tonight actually might show up at lunch tomorrow in a completely different preparation so that you won't even realize it. And it's all just so good. Oh my gosh. They always have vegan and vegetarian options available. And if you have any kind of special dietary restrictions, they will bend over backwards to get you what you need, whatever it happens to be. They will make a special dish. They will cater to your every need. I can guarantee you that. I've seen a lot of that happening, and they're just wonderful about it. On the last night of every session, they always have Lobster Night. So all these pictures are from Lobster Night. On the left, of course, is a lobster. I'm sorry, you'll need me to tell you that. And these lobsters are locally sourced. I mean, I'm reading the sign there. It says sourced just 200 yards away, out in Muscongas Bay, right there. So fresh Maine lobster. And if you're not a lobster eater, they also have other options available always. And a very, very delightful tradition is their cream puffins, which is a delicious puff pastry dessert that they have. It's basically just a cream puff with a puffin head cookie stuck into it, but they're really good and obviously really cute. And that's just kind of a basic introduction to Hog Island. But Jessica and Jake are going to tell you more about their experiences in just a minute. But I did want to say one more thing. Registration for next year's camp sessions starts on October 25th. So if you think you're interested in going to a Hog Island session next summer, I do recommend taking a look at what options there are and signing up as soon as you can confirm something, because the camp sessions, some of them really fill up quickly. So I would say go to hogisland.audubon.org to learn more and register. So that is my portion. Let me stop my share and give it to Jessica. Jessica, you're up. Thank you all so much for listening. I will mute myself. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, you can just dump them right in the chat.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica. I was going to talk about my session, which was the Spring Migration and Mohican Island session. As Carol said, the session started at late May, went into June. As she said, it was a bit chilly. There was one day where when we went out to the Eastern Egg Rock, we got stuck in a cloud. So even though it wasn't rainy, it was wet. And that was a chilly day. It was pretty cold.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was enjoyable. It was a nice break from, because at the time we went, we were in like 80-degree weather already. So it was welcomed. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about some of the initiatives and projects that I learned about during my trip, because I think they're very pertinent initiatives that people are working on in the birding community. The first one is Bird Names for Birds. This initiative was started by Jordan Rudder and her significant other, Gabrielle Foley. Jordan was actually one of our instructors on the island, so that was really cool. So it's a big initiative where they're asking the birding community to get together to discuss renaming birds. It's a kind of all or none initiative. Like, we all have to get together to have the conversation. And I think they said there's about 100 some bird names that would need to be changed. So it would kind of have to all be done at the same time. But the biggest thing is there's a lot of names right now in birds that kind of are ponious or honorific, like a Swainson's warbler or a Bonaparte skull. And these bird names, sometimes they honor things that really ought not to be honored. People who did some pretty horrible things, or just places like a Tennessee warbler. Just because it was spotted in Tennessee, it doesn't really give a lot of information about the bird. So the initiative is to start a conversation to try to see if we can rechange some of the names. An important story that I learned that I thought was really great, that kind of emphasizes the importance of renaming these birds to be descriptive names, is there's a guy who's a blind birder. And so when he's out birding, these Aponeus named birds don't give him any information about the bird. But if you were to say, yellow-crowned warbler, he would be like, oh, okay, like it gives him a picture. Even though he can't see the bird, he can imagine what the bird might look like. So it's a way to be a little bit more inclusive to the birding community. So I thought that was a very brilliant initiative, and I'm what I wanted to share with everybody. So as you can see I included a link on my presentation, that bird names for birds. So you can access that and learn more about the initiative and, joining in the conversation. Another initiative, which Carol talked about, was Project Puffin. And why I really wanted to share this one is because to me, it was like a spark project. So the project was developed by Stephen Kress. Basically, as Carol had talked about, the puffins were extirpated from the area, and due to they used to hunt the eggs back in then, and they used to kill the birds. So they just moved away from the area, and Stephen Kress got it in his head that he wanted puffins back in Maine. So he started this project, and the methodology he established is used globally. So this methodology that he used of using decoys and sound boxes to attract birds back to an area is being replicated throughout the world. Like China is doing a lot of great projects to bring birds back. So it's not only been successful here, but it is also successful globally, which is awesome. But yeah, he used decoys, he used sound boxes, he used different things to kind of lure the birds. In fact, I have a decoy right here. So those were the decoys that were used on the island to bring the birds back. And then they co-opt with a lot of local organizations to help protect the island. So during breeding seasons, you are not allowed near the island. Like you can come near the islands with approved trips, but you can't go on the islands. So it helps keep people away from the islands and people, from disrupting the breeding season, so they can allow the birds to be successfully fledged and all that. But the cool thing about this project is for 6 years, not a one puffin nested on the island. And for 6 years, Stephen Kress kept at it. So 6 years, can you imagine no success on a project? And people are funding him and backing him for this project. And he has to keep convincing people this is going to work. So every year he, retuned his process, he refined it, he tweaked it, this and that. Finally, on the 7th year, he had nesting pair of puffins. And here we are, fast forward to the future. It's the only place in the US where you can find nesting puffins, and they're in large numbers. So it's really cool. And it goes to show the determination that you can have with, just hard work and belief and, really working at something. So to me, that was super motivational. And it made me think, what can we do? Like, what can we as an organization and a group of people, what can we accomplish? If this is one guy who decided, I'm going to do this thing, what can we all do together? So I challenge you all to think about that, and maybe we can do something together to make our area get a cool project. So I want to talk briefly about some of the places we visited. We started, I'm not going to go much into the camp because Carol covered that very well, but birding on the camp is phenomenal. You don't even have to leave the island to bird. There's so many places to bird there. This was a little poem that's in one of the bathrooms that I thought was cute to share. And then this is one of the views, and the sunset that's just perfect. You can just sit there and watch the sunset. This is the classic welcome to the island sign. So we went to Hidden Valley Nature Preserve. It's a deciduous forest that edges on a spruce, sphagnum moss bog. So it's really cool, the split habitats at this preserve. Some of the highlights that we got to see there was the singing warblers. I mean, just everything: Canada warblers, Nashville warblers, black-throated greens, chestnut-sided. I mean, all the warblers and the thrushes. Oh my God, it was incredible just to hear all the birds singing all the time. That's just not an experience we get in Florida. So that was really cool. Here's a picture of a hairy woodpecker feeding young. Eastern phoebe nestlings. It was just so cool seeing baby phoebes. Chestnut-sided warblers are gorgeous. Another place we went to was the Great Salt Bay Farm Wildlife Preserve. So it's one really cool thing that they do in Maine that I noticed is a lot of areas, they actually work together with their Audubons work together with all these other organizations where during the breeding seasons, they maintain meadows. They don't cut down meadows. So they'll cut paths through meadows, but you don't see all these clear cut, manufactured lawns and meadow, like nothing. So they maintain these meadows, which is great because it allows the birds like bobolink and whatnot to breed there. So this is a 115 acre wildlife preserve off of the Damariscotter River. And some of the great birds we saw were the bobolinks, and they have this aerial display flight for mating, which is really cool to see in person, not something again we'd ever see in Florida. And we also got to see some like willow flycatchers, alder flycatchers, tree swallows building nests. They nest in the nest boxes like that we put out for the bluebirds. So that was really cool to see that. But one interesting fact I learned that I wanted to share with you guys is the way different birds select mates. So you have on the left the yellow warbler, which is extremely colorful, and they attract their mates by having a healthy diet. So their colors come from eating a carotenoid-rich diet of caterpillars and whatnot, and that brings out those bright colors. But on cool color birds like the bobolink, that is strictly genetics. So mates are selected for their genetics. So it's very interesting to see. It's not always genetics and it's not always diet. So it's kind of interesting to see that kind of difference between diet and genetics and what attracts the mate. Here's some of the highlights of the birds that we saw. Just very awesome birds. We don't get to see only in migration, if that, for some of these birds, like a willow flycatcher. Good luck seeing that in migration. So another really cool place is the Damariscotter Mills Fish Ladder. So this was a project that started as a result of people were damming up all the rivers in Maine, and a negative problem that occurred with that is when they dammed up the rivers, the alewives fish migration, it pretty much wiped out their population because they couldn't travel up the river to breed and come back to sea. So they realized this problem and the error of that. And so they developed these fish ladders, which were safe areas for the fish to come up the river, spawn, and then go back. So we got to go there and kind of bird the area. It was really cool just to, when we were there, we were in the middle of the alewives migration, which was really cool to see. I mean, just hundreds of these fish just swimming up the river. And of course, when you have hundreds of fish gathering, you're also going to have hundreds of birds. So seeing all the black-backed heron and the herring gulls and the double-crested cormorant were, oh my God, so many. But it was really cool being able to see that. Some other highlights is we got to see some singing Baltimore Orioles and redstarts. The phoebes are always singing everywhere, so that's really cool as well. Oh no. So there's a great black-backed gull that we saw and a herring gull. And then the highlight of the trip is always the Eastern Egg Rock, where you get to go see the puffins. So it's a 7-acre island that was restored to its breeding grounds by the Project Puffin in 1981. Other things we got to see, like during the trips, of course, we just went to go see the puffins, but we got to see razorbill, and we had hoped, but I don't think it happened, that this year razorbills would actually breed on the island, because there was several pairs that kept hanging out at the island. I don't think they ended up breeding. Did they? Did they breed for you guys? Oh, okay. So, but cross fingers, maybe in the future they'll have razorbills returning. But we got to see the terns, the Arctic roseate and common tern, and how to field identify those, which that's a challenge. We got to see all the scoters and the eiders, purple sandpipers. Those are really cool birds. I kind of learned more about how birds have this European pygeal gland, and most of you know this, but it is really cool that they it's on the back of their butt. So when you see them squeezing itching at their butt, they're squeezing that to release the oil to preen. But one cool thing I learned is that the oils can provide antibiotic properties, which I did not know. And especially with the babies, it can actually, they don't produce that always. So babies can be more susceptible to diseases because the oil doesn't produce that antibiotic properties yet. So interesting thing I'd learned. So here's some of our fantastic photos. By the way, I included a lot of our group photos. We had a group share of photos. So as you can see, I gave credit to where credit was due. But people had gotten some fantastic photos I had to share with you guys. If you can look on the upper right-hand corner is a puffin carrying nesting material. So very cool. We have the razor bills on the bottom, which is a great sight, in addition to the puffins. This picture shows them beak tapping, which is what they do with their mates. It's a mating kind of display where they'll tap their beaks off of each other. Super adorable. This is just some razor bills and some puffins loafing. This is what's called a loafing ledge, where they'll gather and just kind of hang out there. Some gulls and terns. There's Arctic, common, and roseate terns. I honestly couldn't tell you which one's which anymore because I don't remember, because they're pretty hard. I'm pretty sure the bottom left one is roseate though, because they're mostly lighter colored. Another highlight was Mohican Island. So Mohican Island is a classic Maine historical island that is very popular for people who love culture, for artists, for bird enthusiasts. It is an incredible migrant stopover because it's 10 miles off land. So during spring and during fall, the birds will gather there, get their food together, and go back whichever way. And the shrubs are all very low, so it's very easy to see into the shrubs and all that to birds. So if you ever get a chance to go, it's a must do, because you'll get very, very good birds. We got to see, one of the cool thing was hundreds of cedar waxwings doing their courtship dances, and they will bop like this along the branches, and then they'll present either berries or flower petals to their lover, and it's really cute to see the little presentation. So that was really great getting to see. We also got to see all the warblers in their breeding plumage, which was fantastic. This is a view of the island from on top of one of the hills, looking down, and this is a view of the island coming in on the ferry. So this is some apple trees, and as you can see, birders are welcome. Cedar waxwings, and they have ringneck pheasants on the island, which are really cool to hear and see. It's an unusual bird. Black burnoon warbler, song sparrow. And then I briefly want to talk about just some of the different habitats, things you just won't find in Florida that make the trip worth it to kind of have an experience. The big one is Boreal Forest, and any bird book you pick up, when they talk about habitat and breeding habitat, it is Boreal Forest. So it's also known as taiga or snow forest. It is defined by forest that grows in high latitude environments where freezing temperatures occur for 6 to 8 months. And trees are capable of reaching a minimum height of over 5 meters with a canopy of 10%. So primarily it's spruce trees, and they don't have a lot of ground cover. But the benefit of these boreal forests is that they provide great nesting opportunities for a variety of birds. And so some of the things you'll see is brown creepers, again, not a very common bird we'll get. Red squirrels are popular up in Maine. We only get gray squirrels. So this is, as you can see, it's edged, but this is a view of the boreal forest and the spruce trees. They grow very straight, as you can see, like just straight up, and they're not very wide, like they don't have big canopies, they're kind of more narrow. Some ferns that were there, the one on the left is cinnamon fern, which is really cool. Yellow rump warbler, so cute. They're about to be here soon, yay. Another cool habitat was Spruce and Sphagnum Bog. So the spruce trees line it, but the sphagnum moss is the bog, and it creates a very acidic environment. So not much grows in it, but what does grow in it is very cool, and it attracts a lot of insects, which attract a lot of flycatchers. So got to see yellow-bellied flycatchers, olive-sided flycatchers. We have, here's a picture of it, and as you can see, the trees lining it. Not much growing other than the moss and the carnivorous plants. Some of the carnivorous plants are the pitcher plants, and they kind of shoot up some little flowers, but those are some of the carnivorous plants. And as you can see, the least flycatchers, one of the flycatchers we saw there. Some of the meadows, the meadows with the wildflowers, they have lupine everywhere, and it is just gorgeous. And the pink lady slippers on the left is the picture of that. So just some of the most beautiful wildflowers are in Maine. And then another cool habitat is the mid-coastal area, which I want to briefly talk about because this is where Hog Island is located in this area. And so the mid-coast was developed when Maine kind of got pushed under by the tectonic plates kind of colliding. And so it kind of pushed Maine under. And then as that was happening, you had the warming of the environment. So the glaciers were warming, and that glacier-rich waters were pouring into the mid-coastal area. So you have all this granite rocked edges and this glacial waters going into the ocean, and it provides a very nutrient-rich environment, which really attracted a lot of like mollusks and whelks and a lot of the shellfish, like lobsters. So they have a very unique ecosystem, and that ecosystem attracts really cool creatures like harbor seals, gray seals, dolphins, porpoises, but it also attracts a lot of great birds, a lot of raptors. You'll get tons of bald eagles, alcids like black guillemot, and terns, and a lot of waterfowl like common eider. So these are just some pictures of the mid-coastal area. These are harbor seals. They're more colorful than gray seals, a little bit smaller too. They're very adorable. This is a view of the Hog Island, kind of looking down along the edge. And then another view of the mid-coastal area. This is a black guillemot, which is one of my favorite birds. When it's in its breeding plumage, they open their mouths and have this most vibrantly red colored mouth. It is adorable. And a common eider. This is just a lobster that we caught when we were on the trip, and included a flock of purple sandpiper that flew by, which was really cool. And then I'm just going to finish up by saying that these are some of the sessions that they have coming up for the 2023 sessions. And as you can see, you can go onto hogisland.audubon.org to register for those. And it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun, totally worth it. You'll get a lot out of it. It is, I cannot praise it enough. So thank you for listening. Glad to have been able to share my experiences with you. And I'm going to punt it off to Jake.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right. So good job, Jessica, again. So one more time, my name is Jake Blalock. I'm 14 years old. And so, yeah, this summer I attended the Hog Island Audubon Teen Camp. And so please enjoy as I try and see if hope that's good.
Yep, it looks perfect, Jake. Thank you.
Okay,
That's awesome.
all right, so here it is, Hog Island 2022. Here's a couple of pictures, just highlighting the show. There's me and Miss Carol again. Our sessions did line up, and that was really fun to be able to see her there, be able to talk. So without further ado, please enjoy. So first day coming in, it was pretty cold and very cloudy, a little bit rainy, but no, that's fine. We took a boat up to the island. There's a picture of the island there, and there's me on the dock to the left, about to go. So yeah, it's sort of how it looks, sort of traveling to the island. And one thing that's really, I know Jessica said this already, but right when you get on the island, it's teeming with life. I mean, just uh, they set up multiple feeders there. That combined with just the environment itself creates an amazing atmosphere that welcomes so many different species of birds. And it's really amazing what you can see there. I mean, right when I got there, I met with the counselors. We put our bags in our room, and I immediately came out just to bird, and there's already so much there. Some American goldfinches. There's three on one log, along with a sparrow trying to return to land. Several purple finches, and there's a male ruby-throated hummingbird perched on a stick. Here are several birds that we found around the island, sort of away from the main area. There are many raptors actually on our trip. Here's to the left, it's a juvenile bald eagle flying over. We got ospreys, hawks, bald eagles. I believe we did see a merlin at one point. Fortunately, I didn't get a clear enough picture because it was so far away. But golden crown kinglet, which is personally one of my favorite birds. I believe this one's a male. It's to the upper right. And if you see a picture of them online, their crown is amazing. It's like almost like a fire, like a flame on their head. It's beautiful. There's a common loon in the water with a catch there, and a yellow-rumped warbler, I believe, female. I saw her just hopping around on a log just right on the island, and there's just a taste of some of the birds that you can see just simply walking around on the island, and it's so amazing just being able to see that. So our first sort of real day of activities, we went on several different hikes. We got to see several different areas. Here are several pictures of some of the special plants that we saw. To repeat, you can see sort of some carnivorous plants there. The pitcher plants, which are again carnivorous plants that sort of attract flies. I believe using certain chemicals. Forgive me, I'm not too familiar with plants, but it was still really amazing to see just the unique diversity there. And
Hey,
moving
hey,
into sort of as a transition to our trip
hey,
to Great.
Jake, I'm
Sorry.
sorry to interrupt, but we've lost your picture. There you go. Okay. It just didn't, it wasn't showing up at first. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, that's all right. So as a transition to our trip to Greysall Bay, there's some nesting tree swallows pictured. I believe Jessica had those as well, but there's a baby sort of poking his head out on the top, and one of the parents feeding him actually right there, and it was really just a spectacle to see. And they have several houses, I believe, just lined up right at the beginning when you get there. So immediately when I started to look around, I noticed that. I just had to get a picture, and it was really adorable and really, really amazing. So again, Great Salt Bay. I think the highlight was the bobolinks. I mean, these are such unique creatures, unique birds. I believe they travel about 12,500 miles during their migration, and they're really really amazing. And even the coloring is just that vanilla patch on the back of their head, combined with all the different colors. I mean, it's just amazing to see.
Hey,
that.
Jake, we can't see the pictures. Can you hit the advance button? There you go.
Can you see them, or is there an error?
We can see them now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it came up now again. Thank you. It just takes a minute, it seems
I
like.
apologize about that.
No worries.
Yeah. So as you can see, if it's all working, there's a common loon, I believe, is a female swimming in the bay, and there were several other birds as well. We saw several yellow warblers, different sparrows, and that was definitely a really fun trip to be able to go. We also discovered that one of our counselors was able to do a really accurate Sora call. I believe Merlin, the app, actually picked it up during a sound ID. It was really funny. But anyways, moving on. Damariscotter fish ladder, I believe is how you pronounce it. believe Jessica already sort of went over it, but again, it's where the alewives, I believe, is what they're called. They try. Um, it's sort of a man-made structure, and like she said, of course, if there's hundreds of fish moving up ladders, you're gonna have hundreds of goals too. So
Jake, hit advance again. Your pictures aren't coming up. I think you have to hit it twice.
advance.
There you go.
You're
You got
good.
it.
You're good now. Yep.
Is it good?
It doesn't come
Oh,
up right away at first sometimes.
Does it? Okay.
You're okay now
Um,
though. It looks good.
There. Okay. So yeah. So pictured there is several herring gulls, I believe, and it was hilarious to see these guys because they would sort of try and catch fish as they were going through the little river there, and when it was funny because when one catched one, another one would try and grab on, and they would sort of fight over it, and then eventually when one would get one, you would see it swallow it whole. It was so weird, but also at the same time really unique in that way, and they would just gulp it down. It was hilarious. Also the Baltimore Oriole, which is really cool to see there as well. So that was that. Can you guys, but can you see the picture? Um, so this is Eastern Egg Rock. So there's me if the PowerPoint is working. There's me on the boat ride there. It was a several-hour long boat ride to get to the island itself. We saw several raptors along with many different types of seals. There are some common eiders pictured to the bottom right, and lots of cormorants too. So yeah, it was fun. I mean, even the boat ride there was really. I got to talk and meet so many different new people, and we sort of relaxed and saw some birds too, and it was nice. Yeah. So, here's some more pictures from Eastern Egg Rock, if they're visible.
Yeah,
Uh,
they are, Jake. It
there-
looks good
okay.
now. Yep. Yeah, you're good. Thank you.
So
Great pictures.
So going in, we arrived at the island itself, and we were brought in by groups by rowboat. And since it's sort of a preserved place, there are minimal man-made structures aside from the shack that the scientists, the researchers live in, which again, even itself is very small. So you sort of had to climb up onto the rocks to get into the island itself. Beforehand, we were actually given small pieces of cardboard to put under our hats. And for those of you who are not sure why, it's because in the bottom left, you can see one of the researchers, the professionals themselves, they will swarm and they're very protective. So even getting onto the island, we were warned that nests could be anywhere and we had to watch out. And sort of to the top, you could see two common tern eggs sort of laid there, and you had to watch where you were walking while these terns were swarming above you, and I got pecked several times. It was like a light tap, but still it was really fun. It's surreal almost. I mean, it's so packed full of life and so just such a unique experience that I mean you can't really experience anywhere else. There's the black guillemot in the top right, which is a fan favorite at Hog Island. We were there during Guillemot Appreciation Day, I guess, and some of the counselors, they sort of like dressed in black and put like a white patch of tape on wore red shoes. It was really funny. Yeah, so they're amazing birds as well. Just really interesting to see. And even going into islands, you can spot puffins. I mean, you don't have to be on it. There's four of them right there just swimming in the water. And I can't not mention the Leach's storm pestrel, which are a species of, I believe, nocturnal birds. They generally come out at night to hunt, and they actually burrow underground. And one of the researchers was able to safely sort of take one out for us very shortly. Don't worry, the bird was fine. But it's really unique. You can see the beak sort of has these little lumps on it. And yeah, it was really, really interesting. Here's some more terns at Eastern Egg Rock. So going in, we went straight to the residential area for the researchers there.
Hey,
right
Jake, I
there,
think you have to hit it one more time so we can see the turns. There we go.
I
Thank
have
you.
to move my
Sorry.
mouse, yeah, I think. Yeah, so in the bottom right, there's a common tern nesting. And she was right near the residential area. And what she did was yell at us for quite a while because I guess we were sort of near her space. She eventually got more comfortable, but she was like right there and it was really funny. And then eventually I believe the dad came over and he perched on a birdhouse, I believe, and then decided it was appropriate to fly over to my friend Nolan's head. So pictured in the bottom left is him with the common tern on his head. I guess he was felt a little, deprived of his personal space. So the tern. So they're very protective, and as you can see there, so two of these pictures are actually roseate terns, and one is an Arctic tern. And the way you can sort of tell from here is their beak color. So if you notice the bigger picture of the tern nesting, there's a common tern. You can tell by the orange beak with the black tip. The picture in the top right and the picture next to Nolan is a roseate tern. You can tell by the fully black beak. If it's not in its breeding plumage, which I believe it would have more of a rosier sort of breast or stomach, I believe. I'm not quite sure. And then in the top left, I believe an Arctic tern, which you can tell is the shorter, sort of bulkier, almost red-orange beak. So the roseate in the Arctic are a bit more rarer, but we were able to see them, and that was still definitely a really cool sight to see. Moving on. Hopefully the picture shows now. So here's some pictures of nesting terns along with some of the babies. You can see some of the chicks, the common tern chicks. One was safely held by one of the professionals there. Again, for a short time, it was returned back to the nest, of course. You can see in the bottom right where there's a common tern feeding its chick. You can kind of see the fish in its beak. And that was really cool because you could just turn slightly and there's some nests, and we were allowed to go on top of the house itself and look around, and you could see these little areas with nests everywhere and these terns, these gulls. It was amazing just to see that. Such a great thing to see. And even you can see, I believe we do have common terns in Florida, but just having them in such great numbers, it was still amazing to see. There we go. Hopefully that's showing. So puffins, of course, this is probably the highlight bird for the Hog Island trip, because you can't really see them again anywhere else in America, especially not in Florida, right? I mean, we were taken to even watching them from you can even see them just from the water, but we were taken to these special areas where they're almost like boxes, covers, where the researchers can sort of watch them and observe them and even count them. You could see them in large groups or maybe even one at a time. So you can see a group of 5 or 6 puffins right there, probably even more off to the side. And there's several at the bottom. And you can see that the rocks are sort of marked with red with white numbers. And that's because they actually mark their burrows. And puffins are burrowing animals. That's where they lay their nests, is sort of under the rocks, I guess. Fun fact, if you ever see a puffin with fish in his beak, it's probably carrying that to a nest. You won't really find puffins with fish, or puffins doing anything else with fish, I guess, which was something interesting that I learned. One more picture. Sorry, this one's a little bit blurry because I took it with my phone. Here. Hopefully that's showing now. This one's a bit blurrier because I took it with my phone. You can sort of see, I put circles around them. You can see a puffin and one other bird, and that's because that is the razorbill. And unfortunately, the day that we went, none were actually there. Now, why is it in the picture? That's because that's actually a model. That's not a real razorbill, unfortunately, as much as I did want to see them. And again, as Jessica did say, that's part of, the whole Hog Island and Eastern Egg Rock sort of recreation project is models did play a big part in sort of introducing the birds and helping them feel more comfortable in this sort of new environment. And so that's one pictured right there. Unfortunately, not real, but it was still interesting to see. Also, that puffin, I don't know why I put this in there, but you can't really see it, but it is carrying fish in its beak, and that's going to go feed its chicks. And it's really funny because you can sometimes see them sort of hop down or fly down. And it was really, really cool to see that. Really interesting. Again, something you won't see anywhere in America. And lastly, some other pictures from various other activities. To the left are some dead specimens that are collected. They're not killed purposely, obviously, but
We can't see the ones on the left. I don't know if you have to. There you go. Thank you.
Sorry again.
That's okay.
So on the left, there's the dead specimens, which are found, not killed, and they're used for research purposes, counting, observing, some other various skulls, wings. I believe that was from our introduction to ornithology class.
Looks familiar.
Picture of the dessert, which again was really, really amazing. The chefs there are really talented. I mean, all the meals were really unique and really delicious. And there is a black-throated green warbler during our tagging demonstration being held there. And being able to see that in action was really amazing, especially by all these amazing professionals that were, again, briefly introduced in the other presentations. But everyone, all the staff there was amazing, so polite and so nice, but also really, really smart. And everyone was just so amazing. And being able to talk to some of them was super cool, I guess. I mean, being able to learn from various authors and researchers and scientists was amazing. So I believe that's my presentation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to watch and listen. So yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you so much, Jake. That was wonderful. And thanks to you, Jessica, as well. Both really, really interesting presentations about different aspects of Hog Island. And I will say, during the time that I was at Hog Island, at the same time that Jake was at Hog Island, when they got back from their Eastern Egg Rock trip, I was very jealous because they are the only group that actually gets to go on Eastern Egg Rock itself. So our trip was a boat trip, and we circled the island. Now I'm just joking about well, no, I'm not quite joking, but it was so wonderful to hear them talking about their experiences on the island. And we got to see lots and lots of puffins and other birds when we were in the boat. But just a real exceptional opportunity to be able to actually go on the island and see that research taking place and see all those amazing nests. I don't see any questions. Does anybody have any questions for Jake, Jessica, or me? I see some questions, but I think they've mostly been answered. Anybody have any questions, or if you have any memories of Hog Island, please feel free to introduce yourself and share your reminiscences, because Hog Island's a wonderful place, and anybody who's ever been there will love it. So Christine is asking, was it loud? And do you mean, Christine, on the island itself? When Jake went to the island, went to Eastern Egg Rock? Yes, she says yes. So was it loud, Jake?
Yes. I actually should have mentioned that, and I think loud is actually kind of an understatement, because even just going on to the island, seeing, I saw there was a picture on there, but it was like a tornado almost, and they were all sort of yelling at you. So it was loud, and it was, I did get pecked several times, but again, it was definitely a great experience.
Very cool. Yeah, someone asked how long are the sessions, and Jessica has answered that to everyone, but just to fine tune that a little bit. Typically, you arrive on the island on a Sunday, and you have to be at the dock between 2 and 4 p.m. at this very specific place between 2 and 4 p.m. And then they will take you over to the island on their little pontoon boat. And then just like Jake and Jessica both mentioned, literally the second you step on the island, it's just this just amazing diversity of bird life and that you just, and beauty that you just feel immersed in just the very second that you step on the island. It's incredible. Pete Johnson asks, and he already knows the answer to this, did I get to meet Scott Weidensaul? I don't know if he's addressing that to me, because I've already waxed rhapsodic about Scott Weidensaul to Pete. But did either of you, you got to meet him, did you, Jake?
Yes, I did. I had the chance to talk to him a little bit. He's an amazing person, and again, he's an author, so he has several books. I think he has one maybe even coming out soon. So yeah, he was an amazing person. Yeah.
Awesome. So the sessions, like I said, start on Sunday, and then you have generally a sort of an introductory sort of session on Sunday evening. And then from Monday through Thursday, you have classes and outings and presentations in the evening. And then on Thursday evening, of course, it's Lobster Night. And so you kind of have your final presentation, and then you leave the island on Friday morning. Jessica.
Oh, I was just going to add, I unfortunately did not get to meet Scott Weidensaul because that was not on my session. Boo.
Next
but
time.
we did have some fantastic presenters. Mark Garland, a naturalist, who does a lot of offers he'll do tours, private tours. He was one of ours, and Jordan, I explained, she was another one of ours. But I forgot to mention this, and none of us did mention it, but I wanted to point out a really cool thing is the staff that works there. So the staff that works there are all renowned people, like volunteers, like renowned biologists, and these really top tier people within their fields, and they'll be serving you coffee in the morning. So it's so cool how, I guess it's just a very humbling experience, because everybody's there for the same reason, and it doesn't matter how, there's none of that I'm the best at this, like Scott Weidensaul. I've not met him, but I'm sure he's, incredibly humble and, very personable, and everybody's there for the same reason. So it's really cool to be having this experience with extremely famous people in the birding community, and they're just there with you, just like you, and doing the same things, going to the same sessions. Some of them are serving you food. Some of them are, like I said, serving us coffee. So that was pretty awesome too.
I agree completely. Yeah, we didn't really, I don't think, stress that point enough, how cool it is to be able to hobnob with these luminaries in the field, and there's never any awkwardness or discomfort or anybody acting like they're better than anybody else. I mean, it's just spectacular. Anybody else have any other questions? Like I said, if you have memories of your own personal Hog Island experience that you want to share with everybody, please take this opportunity if you want to do that, or you can still continue to put questions in the chat. Pete says he wants to go next year. Yay! I know Elizabeth wants to go next year as well, and of course I want to go every year, although that is not necessarily always a possibility. But anything else from anybody? If not, I will close the evening. Jessica, did you have another comment?
I was just gonna say, just for those interested, just like a rough idea. I think, doing the kind of basic package kind of deal, it's what would I say, about roughly $1,200 to $1,300 per for the whole thing. And again, that's meals included, including lunches, out places, admission to places like for Mohican Island, we took the ferry. So everything's that covers everything. So it's reasonably affordable as a trip. It's a good price to, again, accommodations are taken care of, food's taken care of, trips, everything for the trips are taken care of. So it's a very affordable trip. So
Yes, I agree. And one thing I wanted to repeat, I think, is that they do have scholarships available, not just for teens, but and Jake was a recipient of one of those scholarships for teens, but they have scholarships for others as well. Jake, your mom is asking you to talk a little bit about your scholarship.
I'll keep this brief. But yeah, so I was really lucky, and I'm really grateful to be able to, have been awarded the scholarship. I believe an essay, along with an application. I put as much effort as I could into it, and I was very lucky and very fortunate to be able to go there with the scholarship, and made everything a lot easier. I can't stress that enough. I'm very grateful.
Yes, and congratulations, because that's really quite an accomplishment, and I think that is a fabulous thing. Well, thank you all very, very much for being with us this evening. Thank you so much to Jake and Jessica. You did a great job on your presentations that were fabulous, and I really enjoyed seeing and hearing them. I am going to stop the recording here in a minute, and as I mentioned, the recording will be put up on our YouTube channel probably within about a week. Within this week, if anybody's interested in reviewing it. And with that, I will say good night to everyone, and thanks again for joining us. Have a great evening. Bye, everybody.